Forge FC is ready for their upcoming match.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal. My word, what a rocket.
Now, let's get you up to date with Anthony Urciuoli and Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urciuoli. This is the Match Day Preview from here on out, and it's already kind of started, but we're kind of in playoff mode. It's still, about a month and a half or so away, but it feels like playoff mode because week to week, there's a logjam, regardless of where you're looking. That playoff picture, the 5 to 6 teams that are in the thick of it, any of them could finish virtually anywhere at this point. It's been that kind of year. A losing streak, a winless streak, a winning streak completely flips the table week to week. And there's a heavyweight tilt this weekend in our nation's capital. Forge FC, your reigning, defending, undisputed Canadian Premier League champions, traveling to TD Place Stadium for a 7 o'clock clash with Atlético Ottawa. And that is what I am here to talk to you about. I'm Anthony Urciuoli, your digital host. Forge have put themselves in a tough spot. Back-to-back home draws, having gone winless in their last 3 matches. Ottawa, meanwhile, they've won 3 and tied 1 in their last 4. And as a result, they've leapfrogged Forge FC on the table. The sides are level on points, but Ottawa has a match in hand. We'll dig deeper into the numbers very shortly, but we have entered an arena where every match has major playoff implications. And it's an exciting time to be a CPL fan, observer, supporter. Last weekend, Forge had to battle back from a 1-goal deficit to secure a point against Halifax. I said after that match during the live match in review that Forge looked a little off. Touches were a little too heavy, and the pace just wasn't where it needed to be, at least early on in that match. Now, thankfully, the newest member of the club, Benny Banga, you just had to know that he was going to be a key piece to this Forge attack down the stretch, and he has been. He's been a standout in the 3 matches that he has appeared in, 2 of those starts. Skill level off the charts, and I had said that Forge has a new threat on set pieces. We talked a lot about that last match with Becker and Borges, already dangerous. Now you add Benny, and you put an exclamation point on his arrival with a gorgeous direct goal off a free kick in the 80th minute in the last match, salvaging that point. Forge now, and not just salvaging a point, because here was the key piece to that last match. Had Forge won, they could have been in first place, at least for that night. Had Forge lost that game, Halifax would have surpassed. Forge would have dropped to 5th place had they not secured a point, because Halifax would have surpassed them. That is what's at stake week in and week out now at this juncture of the CPL regular season. And Forge now, it's an incredible opportunity to potentially move into first place. I feel like we say this every week. That's how tight things are. And knock Ottawa down a few spots in the process. There's a big piece. 6-point matches week in, week out. And history is on the side of the Hammers. We'll get to that in just a moment. But looking at the table going into this one, Forge FC have dropped down to 4th place heading into the week. As of right now, Forge would be in a play-in game. I mean, that's how wild this season has been. Atlético Ottawa and Forge level on points with 31, but Atlético Ottawa with a match in hand. So, I mean, think of it this way. Forge FC are, so as I said, they're in 4th place. They're now in a play-in game, a playoff play-in game. But they're also 2 points out of first place. It's incredible. They're 2 points out of first and 2 points out of the 5th and final playoff spot. That is where we are at, and it's a little nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting. This is what it's all about. Home record this season, Atlético Ottawa, strong in 10 matches. They have 17 points, 5 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. Away from home, Forge, they've been one of the better, if not the best, away team this season. at different stages. Right now, though, in 10 matches, they have 16 points, 5 wins, 1 draw, 4 losses. They have the third highest point total away from home. And they played 2 less matches than the best away team, and that's York. So Forge very much, struggling at home to get results, but have been very, very good on the road, and that's been a huge help this year. Head to head, I mentioned history on Forge's side. It could not get much more lopsided than this. The two sides have met 14 times. Forge have 11 wins, 2 draws, just 1 loss. They have lost to Atlético Ottawa just once, and I actually remember the game very clearly because it was last year, and it was on an illegal free kick. One of Ottawa's players were part of the wall when they were not allowed to be in. Despite Forge calling it out, it was never called. It was, yes. But anyways, that is the one win against Forge. So there's even a bit of an asterisk on it. This year, they've played 3 times this year already because of the Canadian Championship match. Remember, these two sides met in the Canadian Championship way back in May. That was a Forge victory in penalties. They met twice after that. Forge won at Ottawa, 1-0. That was the Tristan Henry Superman game, the single best goaltending performance I've ever seen in this sport. Henry salvaging a clean sheet in that one. And then Forge beat Ottawa at home in a wild and exciting one, 4-3. So they're going to meet again this weekend and meet an additional time in October, and that'll be the regular season finale. 2 teams battling for top spot will play each other in the final game of the season, between the final game of the regular season. And Forge will be at home in that one. So that'll be one you want to circle on your calendars. And if you have the opportunity to be there live, that would be one. You probably just want to at least just mark it in your calendar, because that should be a big one. Some key insights heading into this one. Ottawa, surprisingly, a big kind of hang up with Ottawa is their inability to score goals. Well, this year they have picked it up, ranked 2nd in goals scored per match at 1.6, ranked 3rd at home this season. We've talked about that, and unbeaten in 6 consecutive home matches is Atlético Ottawa. Forge, meanwhile, ranked 4th in goals per match at 1.4, and they've kept the most clean sheets in the competition with 7. One of those was against Atlético. Now, when you talk Ottawa, you have to talk Ollie Bassett. He has emerged as a serious contender for Player of the Year. He is now tied with Taron Campbell, the league leading goals this season, 10 apiece. And when you do the goals plus assists, Ollie Bassett stands alone in top spot with 13. Key stat going into this one, because this is why Ottawa is a fascinating team. As good as they've been, they are right on the doorstep, knocking on that the chance to be back-to-back regular season champions. They're averaging 42.8% of the possession per match this season. That is 2nd worst. That's just 2 percentage points better than the expansion club, Vancouver. Forge, meanwhile, 56.3, yet they are level on points, and Ottawa's a match in hand. So Ottawa, very efficient. They're not going to play keep away. They're not going to play, total football, but they are going to be opportunistic and beat you on the counter. They use their set pieces very well. That's why they are a very frustrating team to play against, because they are so comfortable defending. They don't need the ball. A lot of clubs, when they're giving up that much possession, it's frustrating. They start losing their shape. They start bending. Ottawa does not. They love defending. I mean, they truly do. They're so good at it, so comfortable doing it, and they don't need a lot of possession, 42.8%. They still win games. And Forge's 56.3 is number 1 in the CPL. Shots on target per match. Well, we're going to see the 2 top clubs in that regard. Forge FC Atlético tied for number 1, shots on target per match with 4.5. All right. Atlético Ottawa on the docket. That means we must, it's tradition, bring in Gordon Smith. He's the voice of Atlético Ottawa on TSN 1200. He's the color commentator during home radio broadcasts, and he joins us once again on the match day preview. Well, first off, Gordon, great finally getting the chance to meet you in person. It's not often in this era of digital virtual calls and things like that. You were in town, so you attended the back and forth Forge York match a few weeks ago. I'm interested though. What were some of your takeaways from the experience? How do you compare kind of the match day experience to that of Ottawa's?
Well, it's kind of funny because like I was staying in a hotel in Hamilton. My wife had gone away on the Saturday to Stratford to the Shakespeare festival. So I was sort of on my own, had to take a bus from all the way up. I think it was on Caroline. I was staying at the Staybridge and had to take a bus. And my wife had told me you take the one of the 10, but she didn't tell me that the one of the 10 has specific bus stops. You can't just go to a regular bus stop. So the first number 10 bus just flew right by me, and I'm like, okay, this is not good. I was fortunate enough to find a very good bus driver who let me get on her bus and took me to where I was supposed to get on. So I finally got on the bus, and I met sort of two Forge supporters, one that was wearing the Newcastle United strip, and had a really good chat with them on the way up, and sort of got a sort of find out how the atmosphere was like with regards to Forge, and walked from the main street to the stadium with them. We got a couple of pictures with them, which was really nice. For the life of me, I can't remember the lads' names. I did at the time. And then it was nice to get into the stadium and sort of soak up the atmosphere outside, and obviously going in the main gate and what have you. Just a really good atmosphere getting up to the press box and obviously bumping into yourself, which was great. But it seemed roughly the same. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit biased with Ottawa simply because I see it every single home game. But it was really nice to get to my sort of first away game, just sort of the way it worked out with regards to being down in Hamilton that weekend on vacation. And it was a wonderful experience, and the game itself was terrific. I'm sure Bobby and Nash wouldn't have been too thrilled at both his teams conceding 3 goals, but I mean, the only thing that was missing from that third York goal was the Benny Hill music, because it was a nightmare from a York standpoint. Sorry, from a Forge standpoint. I think there must have been about 4 or 5 errors in that sequence alone. But in the end, the points were shared, and both teams moved on to this week or last weekend, where it was more drop points for Forge and 3 lost points for York against a cavalry team that are obviously hitting form as well lately. So I think they're one of the hotter teams along with Ottawa over these last sort of 6, 7, 8 weeks. And this weekend, another set of big games coming up. 1 plays 2, Cavalry and Pacific, and 3 plays 4, Ottawa and Forge. And so by the end of sort of Sunday night, it could be a completely different top 4, top 5, who knows, even top 6 by the time the games are finished at the end of the weekend.
The league, it really is an endlessly fascinating league, especially this year. You could find yourself, like you just said, you could climb 3 spots or drop 3 spots, depending on your result that week. In Ottawa's case, I mean, they're hot right now, and 3 wins and a draw in their last 4, unbeaten in their last 6 home matches. We spoke earlier in the year, and there were some low points for Ottawa, but a lot of question marks for Ottawa early on. How would they be able to duplicate what was an incredible year last year? And, don't look now, but the club suddenly looks like a contender again. How did we get to this point? It's been kind of a funny year for Ottawa.
Well, I mean, I think it in simplistic terms, it all comes down to finally settling on your number 6, that defensive midfielder. And Zapater has come in and been 100%, if not 110%, as advertised with what he was going to bring to the table. And it really has made a huge difference. And I think the unfortunate part is that Miguel Acosta, who had filled in that role very admirably, certainly not his favourite position, he's been injured the last 3 or 4 weeks, and he just hasn't been able to get back into his normal sort of right back position in a flat back 4. So as easy as it sounds to say, yeah, you get that sort of settled number 6, that holding midfielder, he's been absolutely top notch with regards to reading the game, the vision of a game, and above all else, just bringing other teammates into play. We talk about the role of the six sort of evolving over the last number of years. It used to be you were just in there to break up attacks for the opposition, but now, you're really the first sort of point of attack for the counter-attack, and that's something Ottawa does extremely well, as we've known over the last few years. Very resolute defensive approach to the game, and that's something that Carlos obviously brings, but it's the counter-attacking ability of an Ollie Bassett, a Zach Verhoeven, players like that are able to drive forward quickly and bring the sort of front lads into play. And that's what's been a really big turnaround, is as well as Zapater is doing on the defensive side of things, he does start the counter-attack with that first outlet ball, whether it's a 5-yard pass, a 50-yard pass, to get things going quickly and into the midfield third. And that's where I truly believe the change has come from the sort of first 10 games to the last 10 games for Atletico here in the CPL in 2023.
And Ollie Basque, he's making a run for Player of the Year, and there were, and I read some of the chatter early on. Could he replicate what he did last season? Can he be the guy? A face of the franchise type player, which is so important in a league like this where you're still trying to establish yourself, and you need stars, you need players, you need faces, and you need guys that fans can kind of cling to. I mean, as a person, as a player, he really seems to have answered the bell.
Well, he's a terrific lad, and I mean, just at the time when the first two seasons for Ottawa really wasn't anything to write home about. A big win here and then a run of losses here and there. It wasn't until last year, obviously, when this club went on a terrific run of games and pushed themselves to the regular season championship and the final, where unfortunately, as we all know, certainly people watching this on your channel, Forge won. But it was a slow start, let's be honest. I mean, Ottawa, I think outside of the first two games, really hadn't put back-to-back positive results. It was like a win, a loss, a draw, a loss, a win, a loss. There was really no sort of momentum that was picking up. And Ollie started off, he was, he had no Verhoeven, a new player that had come in. There was one or two other players that he wasn't used to. When you look at last year, he played with Sissoko behind him as the holding midfielder, and he always knew that he had that defensive support behind him. Something that first 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks he just didn't have. He didn't have that regular go-to partner in central midfield, and it was chopping and changing as far as his attacking midfielder that was alongside him. And it wasn't until things really sort of started to settle in where now I think Carlos knows what he wants. He knows who he's got. Zapater is the holder, and you've got Ollie alongside possibly Noah every once in a while. Zach comes in every once in a while. You've got one or two other players that will now be challenging for a starting position. And I think that makes a huge difference for Ollie. You get in that comfort zone where he knows, okay, I can just play my game now. And as we saw on the weekend with the third goal, that free kick that he's able to just whip in from all sorts of areas of the park. He had earlier on a corner kick in the game that almost went in, where the goalkeeper had to make a stop from Olympico. So he's back to true form that we all expected from Ollie, and he just seems to be enjoying his football again from those first 5, 6 weeks when it was a bit of a struggle for him to find his grip with a lot of new players in the lineup. When you lose a Sissoko and a Barlow and the Brian Wright even ahead of him as a striker, it does make a big difference. And I think it did take Ottawa quite a bit of time to settle into, a regular sort of routine and pattern of how they wanted to play with all these new players. And it's just worked extremely well for them these last 9 games since that 4-3 loss to Forge at Tim Hortons a while ago. They've got 6 wins, 2 draws, and only 1 loss. So it's been an outstanding run for them, and fingers crossed it continues on Saturday night.
You're going to have to help me make sense of this because it's a club that is contending. They're one of the can't remember. I had the stat up a moment ago, but they're one of the highest scoring teams in the league this year, goals per match. I think they're second or third. I think second actually, and yet a club that averages 42% possession per match. How do we kind of reconcile those two things?
Well, when you're a defensive-minded team hitting on the counter-attack, you're not going to have the ball very often. Obviously, you're conceding possession if you're, dropping two banks of four or a bank of four and a bank of five, and you're forcing the opposition to play through you. So the opposition will have more time on the ball. The back four, the back three of the opposition will, be trying to play that penetrating ball. And when you're so sound defensively, it's very, very tough. When Ottawa does have possession, they like to attack on the counter, and that's why quick passes. So again, you're not holding on to the ball for very often. You're trying to spring ahead as quickly as possible into the attacking third. So I can certainly see why with 42% possession, people are scratching their heads saying, well, how can this team be 2 points out of first place again, simply because you would think that to win matches, you have to have possession. And possession can be a little bit strange to look at. It's what you do with that possession. Sometimes, it's a negative possession. Yeah, you're strolling the ball around inside your own half. Well, you're not really doing anything. You're not really going anywhere with the ball. It's once you get into the midfield and the attacking third that then that's where you want your possession to be positive, and Ottawa just does not allow teams to do that.
Does Forge kind of represent that last major hurdle for Ottawa? All the success on the pitch for the club over the last year plus, Forge kind of seems to be that last major obstacle for them.
It certainly does seem that way, Anthony, doesn't it? I mean, until you sort of cut the head off, it's always going to be there, and it's always going to be something that in the back of your mind that when it comes into these big games and big playoff games, can we finally go over that last hurdle? And I think Ottawa showed with Pacific last year that they've slayed that dragon, so to speak. Now I think Forge is, as you mentioned, the final hurdle for them to finally say, yeah, we're here, we're not going anywhere. We're already chapping on the door, and now it's just a case of kicking that door down that says Forge in bright orange, and hopefully it starts with come Saturday night.
It's a home match for Ottawa, so does that mean you'll be calling the game on TSN 1200?
Yeah, we will be calling the game TSN 1200. My partner AJ Jakubek, unfortunately, he's not unfortunately for us, but he's calling the Red Blacks game, I believe, on the road, and I think it's in Edmonton they are, so they're out there this weekend, and then it's a case where the following week against Cavalry comes to town. So, I mean, Ottawa's got two huge games back-to-back, Forge Saturday, Cavalry the following weekend. AJ will be back for that. So young Tyler McDonald will be doing the play-by-play. He did the last game as well, so I've worked with Tyler quite a few times before. Great lad, and fingers crossed we've got lots of goals. It's funny, Tyler and myself did the two Forge games last year. AJ missed the Forge games. I don't know what it is about Forge. He seems to miss those games. He missed the two games, and Ottawa didn't score a single goal the whole 180 minutes. So I'm sure Tyler will be hoping for an Ottawa goal, at least to get his goal call in on Saturday night. I think it'll be another fascinating tussle. These games, between Bobby and between Carlos just seem to be very, chess-like with regards to as much as the substitutions and you watch during the course of 90 minutes, one will make a change, the other counters it. One makes a change, the other counters it. And it's fascinating to watch as much as what's going on outside of the lines as the game itself. But I'm hoping for a decent, high-scoring game. As I said, we've had a 4-3 already. Forge has already come, and I think it was 4-0 they won last year in a regular season game, and we're looking that will not be the case. If we get lots of goals, we're hoping that it's going to be a 4-3 from an athletic standpoint. But entertainment-wise, I think the CPL has just thrown up so many outstanding games that the paying public are certainly getting their money's worth, Anthony. And 3-3 that we saw York and Ottawa here 3 weeks ago. We had the 3-3 at Tim Hortons between York and Forge, and Ottawa 3-1 in the game on the weekend against Valor. So fingers crossed we get lots of goals, but it ends up with 3 points from an Ottawa standpoint on Saturday night.
And even if you're a Forge fan, if you can't watch the game on Saturday, you can tune into TSN 1200 and listen to Gordon. And, taking in soccer on the radio is a very different experience. It's more detailed. There's more of there's kind of a flow to it. There's it's almost an art in a way, because it's difficult as a commentator to call soccer.
Yeah, it really is. You've got to sort of be overly descriptive of as far as just things. Just even basic things as what kit the team's wearing. I would be surprised. I doubt Forge will be wearing their orange, so they're probably going to be wearing their road greys. Which side you're attacking. You always want to visualize, listening to or listening to the radio or watching or listening to it on stream. Who's going left to right, who's attacking where. So yeah, there is a far more visual descriptive that has to take place as opposed to if you're watching the game on TV, and that's part of our job, to make sure that the listener does get to see what we're seeing, obviously through the earphones of a microphone.
Absolutely. All right, looking forward to it. Gord Smith, as always. I think we have one more match this season. It's October, right? That's gonna.
Yeah, the last game of the season, which who knows, it could. Yeah, it's going to come down for something big, right? Whether it might be a case of one of these teams has to win to make the playoffs, or one of these teams has to win to possibly finish first overall, because we obviously know that's a huge carrot being dangled, finishing first overall as well. It carries a lot more than just a trophy and possibly some money. Obviously, you've got that tournament that you're going to be able to participate in, and that's going to be massive, especially with what we've seen happening with the Leagues Cup over the last couple of weeks with Messi. And how great would it be to have Messi coming into Tim Hortons Field or to TD Place? But there's still a lot of work between now and then, and I think 8 games for Ottawa, 7 games for Forge, and I'm sure both teams will be looking for 3 massive points coming up on Saturday to really kickstart this final push to first place.
Absolutely. Gordon, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Anthony. All the best, pal. Take care, and enjoy the game Saturday night, whether you're watching or listening.
All right, 3 keys to the match. Forge, Ottawa. Key number 1 for Forge, earned offense. When you are a club like Forge, you dominate possession, the deepest, most talented box-to-box midfield in the CPL, elite defenders, best goalkeeper the league has ever seen. The only way you're going to give up goals if you're Forge is if the other club really, they have to put in the work. They have to work for it. They have to earn it. The other way is if you leave the door open a crack by making mistakes and allowing the opponent to walk in. Ottawa's a club, typically, they have to work for their offense. They have to get creative. They have to score in different ways because they give up a lot of possession. They average just 42% per match, as we talked about. Forge cannot give up anything easy to Ottawa. That means avoiding fouls and dangerous areas, taking care of the ball, taking what's given to them, not forcing anything, and not allowing Ottawa to deliver long balls over the top. That's a key one. Force Ottawa, very opportunistic club, to build and earn its offensive chances. Nothing can come easy. Key number 2 for Forge FC, dynamic duels. Forge made some changes throughout their match against Halifax, particularly in the second half, and it opened up a lot of space for their attack, and they were able to create big chances. With the addition of Benny Banga, this Forge attack is so much more dynamic. It already was, now it's even more so. And I think there's still a feeling out process as Benny adapts to his new teammates and vice versa. So expect the club to take what worked against Halifax in the second half and apply it to their match against Ottawa. And that means guys like Becker, Borges, Betty Banga, and Campbell creating space for themselves and for each other with their pace, passing, movement off the ball, breaking down that 4 to 5 person midfield that Ottawa likes to play. Expect to see a dynamic Forge attack this weekend, picking up where they left off. Key number 3 for Forge FC: ready, set, peace. Batty Banga. It's a fun name to say, and I'm saying it a lot, partly because it's really fun to say, but also because the impact of this signing. I don't know that we've seen the full effects of it, but I have a feeling it already has been impactful, but I think that's going to grow as he gets even more comfortable. And he scored an incredible late goal for Forge last match directly off a set piece. The club has felt that goal production resulting from set pieces, that's been one of the areas where they have been lacking. They want more of it. You add Benny to the group of takers that already included Becker and Borges. All of a sudden, speaking of dynamic, the club has options. And they can get even more creative with those options. Listen, this game is about confidence. Look for them to build from that stunner from Benny, adding yet another layer to that Forge attack. Those are your 3 keys. Next, we must discuss the Spark Summit, because we're a few weeks away from the second annual event hosted by Forge FC at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. The event, it connects and inspires professional women in the sports and entertainment industry. The event will be on September 9th. That's a Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. at Tim Hortons Field. Following, and this is what's great about this experience, because it's more than just, the panelists, the conversations, just the education piece to it. It's inspiring. That alone is worth the price of admission. But on top of that, it's a networking event. And you get to sit at the club level and take in the match, because Forge FC will be in action. And this is not just any match. It is a match between Forge FC and Cavalry FC, heated rivals who are both in contention for first place in the CPL. So it'll be a big evening, afternoon/evening, all around. You don't want to miss it. Megan Cheka, co-founder and CEO of Stathletes, has been announced as a featured speaker. She'll lead a conversation with a group of expert panelists as she gives her insight into women in the sports business. The event will be hosted once again by Jacqueline Dory, after getting her start with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Actually, that's how I know Jackie. She now works at CBC Sports, covering 4 Olympic and Paralympic games in her career and various World Cups and World Championships. She's also a producer and host at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, covering and producing the Stanley Cup playoffs, NHL draft, the NHL All-Star game. Very involved there. More announcements will come. Secure your spot by visiting forgefc.ca/Spark Summit. We have said it all. A pivotal, crucial match this weekend in Ottawa between Forge FC and Atlético. Remember, the Forge Audio Network has you covered all week long, before, after, even well, maybe not so much, during matches we're usually watching, so we don't, but before and after, those gaps in between, we are there. We are there providing as much Forge FC content as possible. We are your official home. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and you can subscribe on YouTube as well. Okay, well, big one this weekend. I'm excited. I'm sure you are. I can't wait to watch. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.